Many surveys like this one have indicated cloud security is still the #1 concern in adoptions, as cited by many IT managers. And in fact, this afternoon during the lunch talk, the Hong Kong Deputy Government CIO, so they did a similar Hong Kong, we call it, productivity, done by the Hong Kong Productivity Council in year 2012. The same result shows, right, cloud security is the #1 concern. However, such concerns and tolerance of security actually vary from user to user. So what are the concerns? In terms of causes or concerns, it ranges from lack of understanding to unavailability of clear standards and guidelines. In terms of degree of concerns, it varies. Okay, healthcare and banking community are extremely concerned with exposure of confidential customer information, whereas others may feel benefits outweigh the potential risks. Apart from seeking additional or enhanced control to address a new and elevated risk associated with cloud sourcing, cloud users find it difficult to compare security provisions of different cloud service providers when it comes to sourcing of cloud services. Therefore, we need cloud security standards to provide such transparency to better match with the user needs. How do we go about tackling these issues? So we adopt a multi-pronged, holistic approach to tackle this issue, namely the 6 areas highlighted here: the awareness for both cloud user and cloud providers, technology risk in the anti-clockwise fashion, then classification of data and systems or applications, development of associated cloud security standards, then deployment of this standard through certifications, and establishment of relevant policy and regulatory framework. Allow me to go into each of these areas in greater detail. Right, awareness. So we need to educate both cloud users and providers through awareness program to address the security fear, right, in cloud users arising from lack of understandings about cloud computing. We need to increase our effort in awareness educations. We have been organizing yearly public talks and also Cloud Asia conference, which was just recently concluded in May, about two months back. At the moment, we have 2 tracks of monthly evening talk series running concurrently. One is meant for the general public, on more on Cloud 101, right, basic. And the other focuses on industry vertical experience sharing. Last week, we just had a sharing by IKEA, right, on their journey to cloud. Both are being held at our I Experience Centre along the City Link, more closer to the Suntec City. Right, you are welcome to join. In fact, we have left some flyers outside at the registration desk, which will show you the more program about this 2 talk series. Next, we address the new technology risks, such as virtualizations, by working closely with the Research Institute and also Institute of Higher Learning. Otherwise, compensating controls may have to be established through necessary process changes and enhancement. For classifications, we need to devise a scheme to classify informations and application systems to match with the cloud security provisions offered by the cloud service providers. Next, with respect to standard development, we have established a task force in IT Standard Committee 2 years back in February 2011 to coordinate matters relating to cloud computing standards. 2 technical references on virtualization security and guidelines on security and service level for users of public clouds have been developed, published, and launched during last year Cloud Asia conference. Right, copies are available for purchase at Spring website. In fact, we also put some order form at the registration desk where you can pick up. A new multi-tier model on cloud security is being developed now and currently going through 2 rounds of public comments. I will elaborate on these guidelines and standards in my later slides and explain Singapore's effort on cloud security standard development. Now, to provide transparency and visibility of security provisions by cloud service providers, we will proceed with the deployment of such standards through certification of the cloud service providers. This will provide independent verification by third-party assessors or auditors. Last but not least, we may also need to establish necessary policy and regulatory framework to govern the use of and provisions of cloud services to ensure some minimum compliance. In fact, I understand some countries like in UK and Canada, the government actually already adopted a cloud-first policy in procurement. That means they have to consider cloud before any other IT services. Now I go into the Singapore effort in cloud security, mainly on the development of standard and technical references. Now, why are we developing a cloud security standards? This initiative has significant benefits to the following key stakeholders. For cloud security, for cloud services provider, it provides clarity for better meet user needs and therefore build trust with them or with the user. For cloud users, they are now given a yardstick to help evaluating and identifying suitable CSP or cloud service provider, therefore achieving faster adoptions. For auditors and regulators, these standards provide clarity, allowing them to specify security requirements unambiguously and interpret them consistently when auditing the CSP or cloud service provider, thus facilitate compliance and reduce risk. We have also done some survey of similar work done elsewhere to conclude that such standards and guidelines are still emerging or work in progress. Some of these guidelines from CSA Aneesa is in Europe, provide recommendations and point of considerations, but actually not specific as auditable standards for compliance check. They, however, still serve as good, useful reference input to our standard development work. So to address the urgent adoption issues, we went ahead to develop our own standards and guidelines that will cover the needs of different industry and users, will help to provide clarity on security provisions of the cloud service provider. Ultimately, this is to foster and encourage the adoptions of sound risk management and security practices for cloud computing. So this TR, Technical Reference 30, is on virtualization security. So there are many security concerns associated with virtualizations, right? Which is the key technology Although not every cloud service provider use virtualizations, like Salesforce.com, they don't use virtualizations, right? Which is a key technology employed by most cloud service providers. In virtualization, the operating systems and applications are running on top of a virtual hardware, which is the focal piece of software known as hypervisor, inserted between the operating systems and the underlying physical hardware. This additional layer must be properly configured and securely managed. Otherwise, virtualization technology poses new risks and challenges associated with the VMs that the hypervisor manages and controls, right? And the access to hypervisor, right? The moment you gain access to hypervisor, like you gain access to a kingdom. Then operating procedures where they may also need to be revised and redefined to support the new virtualized environment. So the objective is to deliver a set of guidelines and best practices with consideration of governance and security measures to address the security risk posed by virtualization technology run on server. Now, this diagram depicts the scopes of work of this TR30, or Technical Reference 30. This gray area is the scope of this TR. Anyway, it excludes the desktop, network, and storage virtualization. It's only focused on server-based virtualizations. Next TR is a technical reference on security and service level agreement guidelines for usage of public cloud computing services. This guideline or technical reference is jointly developed by IT Governance and Security and Privacy Standards Technical Committee within the MTS Centre Committee. Reason being, cloud users suffer most in the event of outage, breach, and loss. This TR is to focus on security and service level issue when engaging public cloud services with a CSP. Therefore, the objective for this TR is to provide security guidance on usage of public cloud services conforming to IaaS and SaaS model or service model. It excludes the PS, right? And to cover service level guidelines that cloud user should consider when engaging the public cloud service provider. The target audience is actually public cloud users of IaaS and SaaS services. So this guideline is written from the cloud user perspective. Now, I come to multi-tier model of cloud security. The objective is to cater for different needs of cloud users, highlight key security areas and associated controls for each tier, and complement existing security standards. This concept of multi-tier cloud security model is similar to Uptime Institute data center tier model, right? This is to address varying degree of security concerns of different cloud users. So this is a diagrammatic view of the model. So this multi-tier framework allows single common standards to be applied by cloud service provider to meet differing cloud user needs for data sensitivity and business criticality. This multi-tier cloud security is built upon ISO 27001, the generic information security management systems, as the base standards. Then cloud-related control, and is then specified in the MTCS. In short, we call it MTCS standards, but in varying degree for different tier of level. It can be either tighter control or more stringent control, or different frequency of check and testing. We recognize that this is impossible to capture the unique security requirement of all the industry. As such, industry-specific control requirements can then be added to supplement the industry-specific needs. After many rounds of focus group meeting with various stakeholders, including many cloud user and cloud service provider, we have decided to define a 3-tier model in these MTCS standards. This table provides an overview of type of data and systems targeted, and also what kind of security control are being put in place for each tier. Next, we look at the structure for the standards. There are a wide variety of risks associated with use of cloud computing, unlike traditional outsourcing arrangement in cloud computing. There are typically multiple parties using or sharing the same infrastructures, while cloud computing or multi-tenancy introduce additional risks to cloud users. Cloud computing risks overlap with other IT delivery models. These include risks associated with access infrastructure, operation and governance. These standards break those risks into 6 categories as outlined here in the diagram. They are broadly grouped into 2 major categories, namely the core information security as well as the cloud-specific information security. Currently, the MTCS standard has completed development and undergone 2 rounds of 2 months of 2 months each public comments on the draft standards. We are now reviewing and addressing the second round of public comments. We target to launch this in end of August, end of next month. What is unique about this standard is, apart from specifying the standard itself, we actually included CSP or Cloud Service Provider self-disclosure requirement designated to foster transparency, providing key differentiating service characteristic of the cloud provider. Because we realize there are a lot of other important considerations besides just security. There are service-oriented parameters which should be made known to the cloud users. The disclosure may be used by cloud users to understand the differences among the providers and evaluate how those may impart their needs, or, for example, how they may impact their need. For example, the 5 characteristics in the cloud computing as defined in NIST in terms of on-demand, self-service, broad network access, resource pooling, rapid elasticity, and metering. Some of these cloud providers claim to provide, they don't even have self-service provisions, right? So these 5 characteristics actually is also revealed in this self-disclosure. This self-disclosure should be completed by the cloud service provider parallel to certifications. That means when they apply for certification of this standard, they actually have to complete this self-disclosure. And it will be reviewed for completeness by the assessor or the auditors and attached to the certifications. But the information is not validated. That means we just need the cloud provider to declare and disclose what they have with regards to all these service parameters. In conclusion, that's my last slide. Cloud security is still the #1 key impediment to cloud adoption. Concern and tolerance of security actually differ from user to user. So therefore, we need a multi-tier security model to address it. There's a need to have visibility and clarity in the security and service provision. Therefore, we included self-disclosure in the standards. So MTCS is an attempt to address such needs of cloud users. Ultimately, we feel transparency is the way to build trust between the service provider and the cloud user. I end my presentation. Thank you.